What if I told you the backrooms were in fact real, and that if you take a step between a crack that's slightly off or lean against the join of two walls just a micron off-center, you will in fact no-clip into real-world locations? Teleportation, anyone? Today, we're tackling the big question. Are the backrooms real? Alright, let's get straight into it. You've probably seen the backrooms everywhere. Creepy TikToks, found footage style YouTube videos, eerie Reddit threads. The lore is simple. If you're not careful, you might no-clip out of reality and land in an infinite office nightmare filled with flickering lights, damp carpet, and maybe a few unfriendly roommates. But is it just internet creepypasta? Or is there something lurking in the background of our world that explains why the backrooms feel so terrifyingly possible? Let's pull on that thread and see where it leads. The Backrooms story started in 2019 with a grainy photo of a bland yellow office space posted on 4chan. The accompanying description painted the now famous picture that goes something like this. If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms. Romantic, right? If by romantic you mean a nightmare that smells like old socks and mold. That single description spread like wildfire. Suddenly, people across the internet were expanding the lore, creating levels, drawing entities, and crafting survival guides. The backrooms evolved from one creepy photo into an entire shared universe. But here's the weird part. People who had never heard of the backrooms before swore they had dreamed of it, or felt like they had been there before. Why does a fictional place feel so real? This is where liminal spaces come in. These spaces are supposed to be full of life, but when they're empty, something feels wrong. The backrooms crank that feeling up to the nth degree. The yellow walls, the stale air, the endless buzzing. Your brain looks at it and says, yeah, I've seen this before. Except you haven't, unless you count your nightmares. Or maybe your last office job. That eerie familiarity is what tricks people into feeling like the backrooms are real. But could there actually be a real place like this? Let's check it out. The central idea of the backrooms is that you no-clip into them, like in a video game. In games, no-clipping means phasing through walls or stepping outside the boundaries of the map. But what about real life? Can you actually glitch out of reality? Well, no one has filmed themselves melting through drywall, though if they did, it would probably go viral in under 5 seconds. But people have reported experiences that feel similar, like sleep paralysis where they fall through the floor into endless hallways, out-of-body experiences where they're stuck in endless beige corridors, and dreams so vivid that waking up feels like escaping the back rooms. So, science says no, you can't just pass through a wall. But physics is full of strange loopholes. Quantum tunneling, for example, is when particles actually do pass through barriers. That's a real phenomenon. If matter at the smallest scale can sometimes break the rules, who's to say it couldn't happen to us on a larger scale? So maybe no-clipping is just a creepypasta version of a very real, very tiny physics glitch. Which is comforting. Until you realize physics glitches don't usually come with monsters. Here's where things get surprising. People have found places in the real world that feel almost identical to the backrooms, and they've documented them. For years, nobody really knew where the original backrooms photo came from. That yellow, moldy nightmare of a room, it just floated around online, fueling theories and horror stories. But in 2024, the mystery cracked open. It started with a small backrooms Discord server. A group of people obsessed with solving the puzzle traced the image back through the Wayback Machine, all the way to a forgotten renovation blog from 2003. And get this, the photo wasn't staged at all. It was snapped on a Sony Cybershot during the renovation of an old furniture store in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. The store was being gutted for a new tenant, Hobbytown, and workers were tearing down fake partitions and walls. On June 12, 2002, someone tilted their camera, hit capture, and unknowingly created one of the most unsettling internet legends of all time. The file name? dsc00161.jpg. The caption? Just a casual note about water damage in what they called the East Room. No windows, stained carpet, endless yellow walls. And that's it. That ordinary accidental snapshot became the seed for the backrooms we know today. Today, the building is nothing like it once was. It's a racing track for RC cars. The original room is gone. But in a way, it's still here, lurking on every creepypasta forum, haunting anyone who looks at that cursed yellow photo for too long. Alright, so you've heard of the Backrooms level fun, right? Bright balloons, confetti on the floor, and that unsettling feeling that something's very wrong with this so-called party. But here's the creepy part. This level actually has a real-world tie-in. The story goes that someone digging through the Backrooms wiki noticed an odd detail about its original photo. After some investigation, people eventually traced it back to the basement of a Burger King. Yeah, you heard that right. Not some cursed mansion, not an abandoned asylum, just the underbelly of a fast food joint. The photo was supposedly taken by a user named Juche Pizza, who stumbled across it years back. They realized the image wasn't some random party hall. It was literally the leftover event space of a Burger King basement in Berlin, complete with cheap tile floors and walls just bland enough to feel off. Regularly Blue is credited with discovering the real-world location of Backrooms Level Fun in a video titled Backrooms Level Fun Location Found in Germany. So we've already seen some spots that feel like they could have been ripped straight from the Backrooms. Here's one that you may or may not be familiar with. What about the well-known Liminal Hotel, the Holiday Inn Express at London Heathrow Terminal 4? Guests have reported that the corridors feel longer than they should, with repetitive doors and signage that all start to blur together. There's an interior courtyard lined with square windows, giving this weird indoors but kinda outdoors vibe. Some even joke that if you wander too long, you might end up in a corner of the hotel you've never seen before, like the building itself is secretly testing your sense of direction. Online, the Backrooms community has latched onto this place hard. In fact, it's become associated with level 188, where the hotel's real-world layout, roofed hallways, central courtyard, square windows, is mirrored in eerie detail. Even the holiday decorations make a cameo. A Christmas tree in the lore supposedly nods to the real hotel's festive decor, adding a slightly surreal, haunted by festive cheer feel. So yeah, on paper, it's a perfectly normal, functional hotel. But walk the halls long enough, and you start to notice it's not just a pit stop for travelers, it's a perfectly ordinary building that somehow manages to feel not quite real. Kind of like being in a hotel designed by someone who really liked the idea of liminal spaces, but didn't tell the guests. Let's check out Terminal 2, Denver International Airport, Colorado, USA. Airports are inherently liminal. You're neither here nor there. Your luggage may also no-clip and be lost, and the fluorescent lights hum a monotone song only dogs can hear. Terminal 2 in particular has long stretches of identical hallways and corridors leading to gates that feel like they loop back on themselves. It's almost impressive how disorienting an entirely functional building can be. Or the basement tunnels under the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, a sprawling maze of service passages with bare pipes, echoing footsteps, and lights that flicker just enough to make you question if you're alone. People who've toured them say it feels exactly like stepping into level 0. The Langham Hotel, London, UK. Luxury and uncanny go hand in hand here. Polished floors, soft lighting, and corridors that feel endless. It's the kind of place where even the carpet has existential dread. Step in, glance down a hallway, and you might wonder if the elevators even go anywhere, or if they exist just to remind you that you're a tiny human in a very precise world. So you've probably seen the pool rooms, those endless tiled halls filled with glowing blue water, quiet and strange. Now imagine stepping into a real place that feels almost the same, the Hangzhou Constant Temperature World of Water in China. It's an indoor water park, but the design is uncanny. White tiles, sterile lighting, and long pools stretching into the distance. Photos of it spread online, and people instantly drew comparisons to the pool rooms. It's cheerful on the surface, but look too long and it feels empty, liminal, like a real-life entry point to a level you'd never want to swim through. So, what about the psychology of belief? Why do so many people swear the backrooms exist? It's like the Mandela effect. Entire groups of people remember a thing that never happened, but the details feel so familiar that arguing against it feels pointless. So maybe when we say, "I think I've been in the backrooms," what we're really saying is, "My brain has stitched together every creepy hallway I've ever seen, and now it won't shut up about it." Thanks, brain. Now for the big brain-bending idea. What if the backrooms are real, but only because reality itself is, let's say, flexible? If we're living in a simulation, like some scientists suggest, then glitches are inevitable. In video games, if you wander too far outside the map, you find unfinished textures, empty rooms, and bizarre, repeating hallways. Sound familiar? The backrooms could be the debug room of the universe, a space outside normal reality, where all the extra textures and unfinished code get dumped. That's why the backrooms look so bland. They're not designed to be lived in, they're just leftovers. It's a terrifying thought, but also kind of hilarious. Imagine reality is the world's most complicated video game, and you somehow ended up in the cosmic version of a half-rendered office break room. Alright, let's talk about the creepiest part. The entities. The backrooms lore is full of them. Facelings, hounds, skin stealers, and worse. If the backrooms were real, would that mean the entities are real too? Well, maybe not in the literal sense, but there's an argument that entities are our brains trying to explain that primal feeling of being watched in an empty place. You know that sensation? Walking alone at night and swearing something's behind you, only to turn around and find nothing? Entities could be that feeling, given form. Or, sticking with simulation theory, maybe entities are corrupted data, unfinished programs left wandering in the unused levels of reality. Basically, cosmic junk code. Except this junk code might eat you. Time to answer the question. Are the backrooms real? Technically, no. They started as a piece of internet horror fiction. Every level, every entity, every survival guide was created by the community. But in another sense, maybe yes. The backrooms are real in the way myths, dreams, and nightmares are real. They exist in our collective imagination. They're built from pieces of real spaces, real fears, and maybe even real physics glitches. They might not be under your office floor, but they're very real in the human mind. And sometimes, that's scarier than any entity. Here's a piece of lesser-known backrooms lore. Some theories say the backrooms aren't just endless random rooms. Instead, they're an archive of forgotten architecture. Every demolished mall, every renovated office, every hallway that no longer exists in the real world still exists in the backrooms. That's why it feels familiar. When you wander those yellow halls, you're not just lost. You're walking through the ghost of places you've been before. Maybe even places you didn't realize you remembered. The backrooms aren't just a prison. They're a museum of forgotten spaces. Which, honestly, is both poetic and completely horrifying. So, if you enjoyed exploring whether the backrooms are real, hit subscribe. Because if you don't, I might just no-clip into your living room and replace your furniture with endless yellow wallpaper. And trust me, that carpet smell does not come out.